A pay-per-view doomed to fail before it ever even began. I'm John Rant with the retro review of ECW December to Dismember 2006. The first and only ECW December to Dismember pay-per-view, and because it did so poorly, they didn't do another standalone ECW pay-per-view under the WWE umbrella. TNA did one, Hardcore Justice, but they couldn't call it ECW, and yeah, that was fucking abysmal as well. This show is regarded as one of the worst WWE pay-per-views of all time, for a few reasons. They launched the ECW brand, relaunching it on the Sci-Fi Network. It didn't fucking work, because one, people wanted it to just be an updated ECW. And they had characters like the Zombie and Nacho Libre and other shit and everything, and they had some new talent. CM Punk could have actually worked on the ECW brand. Here's the problem. Vince McMahon didn't see much in CM Punk. Paul Heyman wanted to make CM Punk the ECW champion. What didn't happen was exactly what Heyman wanted, and that and a bunch of other shit is part of the reason why this show goddamn died really fucking quickly. Also the fact that they had the ECW brand going since, I believe, sometime in June of 2006, and they had ECW matches on the various pay-per-views, and at first you're thinking, okay, there's some stuff that can actually, this can actually be a benefit to WWE. And maybe it can just be a rebranded ECW, and you could, update the violence and stuff like that, and actually, make it about the hardcore, action, not just blood and guts, but like, balls to the wall action. These guys are going all out. It was just so fucking doomed to fail. And once they got to, this point where they were going to do a standalone ECW pay-per-view, they sandwiched it in the middle of two pay-per-views they already had scheduled. Survivor Series, which was, I think, not even 2 weeks before this. And then they decided to have Armageddon about 2 weeks after this. So, Survivor Series 2006 actually wasn't that bad of a show. Check out my retro review of that. And this being right in the middle, you had Armageddon, and that was actually going to be a pretty damn decent show, and I'll probably retro review that a little bit later. This did 90,000 pay-per-view buys. Big old epic, graphics and, video package for the Elimination Chamber, Extreme Elimination Chamber match. And the attendance was 4,800 people. I think the capacity for the venue, the James Brown Arena in Augusta, Georgia, was 6,500, 7,000. I mean, it was what it was. I mean, that's okay. But 4,800 people isn't all that bad, especially when, it's an ECW brand that is already pretty much fucking dead. And this also would mark the last show, the last pay-per-view that Heyman would be part of for nearly 6 goddamn years. And there's good reason for that, because he was clashing with Vince. He talks about this as a documentary, and it was really, really, really fucking bad. Really, really fucking bad. Crackpot Joey Styles and Taz on commentary, and I will say this, there was two matches advertised. The best match was the opening match. The dark match, by the way, was Stevie Richards versus Rene Dupree. The Extreme icon Rene Dupree, who was a good talent, but come on. I mean, what the fuck? We had the Hardys versus Eminem. Second longest match on the show, and it was the only one that didn't really drag. And this was also one of only 2 advertised matches days before the pay-per-view. That's not how you're going to get people to buy, part with their hard-earned money, especially at this time, well before the network was even fucking thought of. It was very well worked, and Melina was doing the usual screaming and, antagonizing. It went over 20 minutes. They didn't have anything for the show. They didn't. This was like 23 minutes, and they also, commentary was also saying, hey, this may be the last time that these teams ever team up. And yet, I believe they would team up at Armageddon 2006, as well as the Royal Rumble 2007. They would at least be part of the Royal Rumble match, so it's not like it was the only time we'd ever see these guys compete as tag teams again. And yeah, the problem is while it was a well-worked tag match, and it had some good psychology, it did drag a little bit. And Jeff Hardy hit a double swanton, 1, 2, 3. So he sandwiches Mercury on Nitro. And there we go. We got our victors right there. The Hardys win, and it's the last time they'll team up. Except for the multiple other times that they fucking teamed up. And then the announcers kill time. And then we have, like RVD, with a little, pre-tape insert talking about the chamber match and, how it's worth it, all the scars, because the winner's going to be RVD. It was back when RVD actually meant something, by the way, before he was banging whatever the fuck Katie Forbes is. Matt Striker, in a very pink sweater vest, lectures fans about violence and says, hey, you want to see Matt Striker in an Extreme Rules match? Well, nope, it's going to be a Strikers Rules match. So, no eye gouging, hair pulling, no moves off the top rope, no foul language. No moves off the top rope. Apparently, he took influence from Bill Watts in WCW in 1992. So, Matt Striker versus Balls Mahoney. Yeah, Balls Mahoney, by the way, rest in peace, Balls Mahoney. This wasn't good. Here's the thing. You can have, matches where you have, really good wrestling and everything, and you have a way to get the heel, you get, anger towards the heel and everything, and you get to where, somebody like Balls Mahoney, who is very likable, comes back and just, destroys Striker through his grit, determination, and also the fact Balls actually could wrestle. Or you could just make this and so many other matches on the card, including the Extreme Elimination Chamber match, really fucking slow. Striker also had his face on the back of his tights, and Joey Styles did have one good line, besides being a fucking crackpot. He did have a good line. You gotta wonder about a man that wants to sit on his own face. Now, I gotta admit, that was funny. Commentary, by the way, really checked out quickly, and I don't blame them, because this show was really bad. This is like WCW 2000 levels of bad. And the camera kept focusing on Striker's face on his ass, and it was just kind of funny the way they placed it. It's just it was just a way to make a joke, because they pretty much made Striker a goddamn joke his whole career, which, to be fair, Striker apparently isn't the most well-liked guy, at least by some people, but I always found him at least be a good talker, at least my opinion. Anyway, Nutcracker Suite, 1, 2, 3. The crowd did not want to see a regular match. They wanted to see stuff with weapons, and Balls Mahoney, be the chair-swinging freak. We got boring chance. Not the only time we get boring chance. And then we get, cut the backstage. Sabu is laid out. The man who has gone through barbed wire, cut himself open, gone through tables, landed on his own goddamn neck. Thanks, Chris Benoit. Not the only time Chris Benoit would target a person's neck. But he didn't target anybody in wrestling, because his wife was out of wrestling by that point. Anyway, that was months after this event. So Sabu's gone through all this shit, and somebody laid him out backstage, and now he's being taken, he's going to be taken away. He's out of the main event. Bullshit chance. A lot of bullshit chance, because this show was bullshit. Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay, I always called him Elijah Burkay because I'm an idiot, versus the full-blood Italians, Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke, with Trinity. Trinity looked quite good here. The Elijah experience. Weird how Elijah Burke is still competing. Pope D'Angelo Dinero, current NWA television champion, I believe. Won on Primetime Live. The crowd was focused on Trinity. Can't blame them. Cared not for this match. Sylvester Terkay, by the way, was released from his contract soon after this and apparently competed in Japan for a bit. And is now a car salesman. Thank you to everybody on Twitter that told me that, because I had no goddamn idea. I wonder what happened to him. We got, the Elijah experience, which was just a stroke. 1, 2, 3. Mamaluke got pinned, no reaction. TNA chants during the, some of this, by the way, and also part of the beatdown. And then we get backstage with Sabu being loaded into an ambulance. RVD and Punk outside, and the crowd's also chanting bullshit, and they're bored by this. And here's how you don't get people bored. Daivari with Great Khali versus Tommy Dreamer. Wait, that's how you get people more bored. And that's nothing against Daivari. Everything against Dreamer. I'm sorry. Tommy Dreamer has wrestled way too fucking long. Way, way, way too fucking long. That match he had with Moose earlier this year at Slammiversary was one of the saddest, most pathetic matches I've seen in a while. And apparently he's a nice guy. And also he was apparently the one behind that whole shooting angle at, for the wedding on Impact Wrestling. And yeah, no, fuck that. Khali was caught interfering, which Khali moves like a fucking glacier, moving backwards. So it's like he's never moving forwards. He does the whole thing, and he grabs Dreamer's leg, and then makes sure he goes over the top rope, and the ref sees this. It's like, what the hell's going on? So he kicks him out. The crowd's chanting, no, hey, goodbye. Took forever for him to get away. The crowd booed heavily, and we get a roll-up holding the tights 1, 2, 3. That's what you want to see. Basic matches with dodgy finishes. Not that ECW didn't ever have dodgy finishes. The television was a little bit weird, but this was not ECW. That's the thing. If they had called it anything other than ECW, this could have succeeded. Or at least not been as shit. But anyway, Dreamer is then trying to go after Daivari and gets attacked on the stage. He gets just dropped. Khali just dropping him with the Khali bomb. That was not a good idea. Crowd boos heavily. Again, they cheer Dreamer when he goes away. Well, backstage because they're like, well, he's not dead. Khali didn't kill him, so at least there's that. And then Heyman has Hardcore Holly replace Sabu, and the crowd boos. Saboos, if you will. Almost said Saboobs. That's not quite right. This was unfortunately not the worst decision they would make that night. One of the worst decisions they made was having Kelly and Ariel in a mixed tag match. Mike Knox teaming with Kelly versus Kevin Thorne with Ariel. I want to say right now, while I'm not the biggest fan of Kelly, they also threw her out there with no goddamn training. I'm talking about her as a wrestler. I'm not talking about her as a person. Apparently she's a nice person. But they threw her out with no goddamn experience, so she couldn't really do anything because you need to learn this stuff, run the ropes, all that. And, yeah, just go out there, flop around, hair pull, do all this stuff. And Ariel, everybody was looking at Ariel. I mean, not that I blame them. But, this was just fucking shit. They reacted to the pretty girls, but this was absolute dog shit. Nobody wanted to see Mike Knox and Kevin Thorne have a goddamn match. And they had a match for pretty much 90% of the whole damn thing. Knox abandoned Kelly because she likes CM Punk. She likes the straight edge. She likes his straight edge. Moving on. This was bad. Ariel then covers, practically muffing out Kelly. 1, 2, 3. And here's Sandman to save the day. He gets a pop. Sandman actually got one of the biggest pops of the goddamn night. Now we get recaps of Lashley versus Show. Yeah, by the way, that mixed tag match, one of the worst matches of 2006. And again, Mike Knox was never that bad, but he was never really that interesting. Kevin Thorne was what he was. This is better than Mordecai, but that's not saying much. It did stick around longer than Mordecai. And the women weren't ready for pay-per-view. So it was a lose-lose situation. And then Heyman and his Riot crew, the Bashams under Riot helmets. Paul was very close to the Extreme Elimination Chamber. I'm just going to let that sit there. Let's hear it for Paul Heyman, in other words. Yeah, he looked done, and I don't blame him because he was upset. He was clashing with Vince, and he couldn't get his guy to win. And the show was a disaster. He knew the show was a disaster. The crowd, I'm pretty certain half the crowd probably left. I mean, I don't know if they did, but I would have. If I was seeing a show this bad, I would have said, fuck it, I'm gone. Extreme Elimination Chamber match. Big Show versus Punk versus Test versus Lashley versus Hardcore Holly versus RVD. The last two actually started the match. And it's 5-minute intervals. And it's Extreme Elimination Chamber because you have a few weapons. You have Big Show with a barbed wire bat. Punk with a chair. Test with a crowbar. Not Devon Storm, but an actual crowbar. Would have been weird to see Devon Storm hanging there. Even though Devon Storm might have done it at that point. He did a lot of weird shit in WCW in 2000. And Lashley with a table, which is somehow less wooden than he was at this point. Lashley, by the way, looks the exact same, now as he did back then. Because the guy's fucking ageless. He's fucking immortal. The last two started. This was atrocious. The intros took about 10 goddamn minutes because they were padding this motherfucking shit out. Because they were like, well, damn. We didn't advertise that many matches. We did all this crap and all this hype, and we only have 2 matches. We got to add all this stuff and shit. They ran slow. They ran low, or low on time, or they ran like not even tight on time. So they're like, we need to stretch this out. And the interest in the show was low because besides RVD and Punk, nobody got a big reaction. Lashley got a mild reaction because he is a big guy and he actually does have some good athletic ability about him, and still does. But he was very green by this point. And my God, they booked, every bit of this match was booked so goddamn wrong. So the crowd came alive for RVD when RVD was on the offense against Hardcore Holly. And then CM Punk comes in the ring at number 3. Crowd really pops. The chair shots to the head, I'm glad they don't do those anymore. Test comes in at number 4. The crowbar's out. Still would have been funny to just have him swing Devon Storm at somebody. Don't know why I have anything against Devon Storm. I actually don't. It's just very weird. And Test is in at number 4. Let me just say right now, the Test, it's very sad that he died at age 33. But my God, he was so juiced out of his fucking mind at this point. I'm amazed he made it to 33. I mean, seriously, take a look at the guy. Take a look at him in 2004. 2003, 2004. And then take a look at how he was when he came back. And he was even bigger when he went to TNA for that one pay-per-view shortly after the Benoit tragedy. And he was juiced out of his goddamn mind. And Jesus Christ, he's not the only one at that time, but fucking hell. Good God. Anyway, Roy talk aside. Punk gets eliminated first by RVD. The crowd boos. And they're not even booing RVD. CM Punk, this guy had been on a pretty big winning streak. And had been a guy that had organically gotten over to the new ECW crowd, was eliminated first. And RVD eliminated him. The crowd was like, okay, we're half done here. But RVD's still in there, but RVD had that wellness violation. Because RVD as champion was a bad idea because he got suspended because he was a fucking idiot. And I'm not saying that there should have been penalties with weed and others and stuff like that, but he should have conducted himself better as champion, and he fucking didn't. Then we get a big boot to Hardcore Holly and a botched 3 count. So already this show is off the rails anyway. And Hardcore Holly leaves anyway. Okay, maybe he actually got hurt. Hopefully not. Granted, this is 14 years ago, but still. RVD, then he knocks Test down near, to set him up for the 5-star frog splash. Instead of moving him away from Big Show's Extreme Elimination Chamber pod, there's chain link stuff there, in the top, so you could grab somebody's foot. He flips off Big Show, and then Big Show grabs his foot when RVD tries to get on top of the pod. What the fuck did he think was going to happen? Now, granted, RVD, when it came to main events, didn't really think, but what the fuck was he thinking? And why did they have him do this? He just looked like an idiot. And then Test, hits a top rope chamber elbow, 1, 2, 3, with like 2 minutes left. So Test is just standing there with the crowbar, just doing this. It was fucking ridiculous. And then Lashley gets in at number 5. And he was kept trapped there by the crew until Lashley broke his chains. And, wait. He broke the chains in the pod. He was trapped in there, he was chained in there, and he broke the chains. This is really not going as well as I expected in the match, too. And he hits a spear eventually, 1, 2, 3, and then Test is eliminated. And then he's got like 2 minutes to fucking kill while Big Show's right there. And then Big Show stupidly has his barbed wire bat, and swings it, catches it in the chain wall, and then gets his ass beat, gets busted open, bleeding through the pod wall. Spear, 1, 2, 3. And huge pyro for Lashley. I think the pyro may have actually cost more than the fans paid to get in. And this is it. Paul Heyman would leave. He would come back 5 fucking years later, or about 6 months later. No, 6 years later. I'm just tossing that there. I'm going to stop trying to clean this shit up. This was really, really fucking bad. Really fucking bad. And the ECW brand, it was already basically dead anyway, because these ECW originals didn't really have all that much left. I mean, nothing against them. But it was fucking doomed to fail. And ECW December to Dismember is a pay-per-view that will live in fucking infamy. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description, that is. I'm John Retland. I'll see you soon.